When I was a kid, I never really messed around with turnips in Animal Crossing. The idea of risking all my hard-earned bells into some vegetable market that I didn't understand at all was just too scary for little Danny. But now that I'm Big Danny, I want to see what I was missing out on. I've always gone on ad nauseum about how turnips in New Horizons are basically free money, but New Horizons is the only game that I've gone in-depth into researching about. So I wanted to see if they were just as profitable back then as they are now. So let's compare the stock market across every Animal Crossing game, starting with the first entry and working through the series in order. Every game will be tested to the following parameters. We'll start from a humble 10,000 bells, and we'll be investing that fully into buying turnips as soon as we're able to. We'll make note of what we buy turnips for, and what we ultimately sell them for that week. Whatever we end up with after selling will be reinvested into turnips the next week. And we'll track our profits or losses by week and our percentage return to date. We'll also make note of selling prices throughout the week to help us observe patterns as far as which days are best for selling. There are 4 patterns that turnip selling prices generally observe: the decreasing pattern, the small spike pattern, the large spike pattern, and the random pattern. Though every game features these patterns, they go through tweaks and changes across the series that should provide us with a good degree of variance to see which one is the best. We'll do this for 10 weeks per game, which should be a good enough sample size to give us an idea of what we can expect to make over time. So first up is Animal Crossing for the Gamecube. In the almost 2 decades between this game's release and New Horizons, the stock market hasn't changed a whole lot as far as buying and selling goes. Joan will show up to your town every Sunday morning between 6 a.m. and noon, but the range of her prices vary much more in this game compared to newer ones, as evidenced by our first purchasing price in week 1. 71? You could buy them for 71? 71 bells per turnip nets us 140 turnips total. Now we'll time travel to each day in the week to check selling prices. Most of you are probably used to there being 2 different selling prices during the day, one in the AM and one in the PM, but in the first Animal Crossing, you actually only get one fixed price throughout the day, so we only need to check each day one time. Monday's selling price is 74, which is a slight profit from the 71 that we bought for, though generally you would expect to see something better than a 3 bell per turnip profit at some point during the week. Turnip prices are rarely ever very good at the beginning and the end of the selling week. It's Tuesday to Friday where the juicy profits can be found, so we'll hold on to our turnips for now. 79. Okay, which is encouraging because it's going up. 84. Okay. It's still going up. That's good. But, like, it can't go up forever, right? I'm scared. I'm scared! That's really bad. 56, man? Oh, no. Okay, it went back up. So... man, I don't know. What do you think? Should we go Saturday? You're never gonna know unless you try, right? Okay. Alright. I'll take it. So we ended up taking a small loss in week 1, selling for 66 bells and losing 700 bells from our initial 10,000, meaning that we'll start week 2 with 9,300 bells to invest. A profit was possible had we sold on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but that's the risk that you take. Week 2's buying price is 107 bells, which is much steeper than last week. We can only afford to buy 80 turnips this time, so let's hope that we can make the most of them. Monday's price is, again, a small profit from the 107 that we bought for, but I'm still convinced that we can do better. Alright, this is very interesting here. What is it gonna do here? Holy shit! I think I'm gonna sell. Oh my god, look at the bar graph. Oh my god, 68,480 bells. That's crazy. Yeah, I'll sell that. So we're up to almost 7 times our initial investment amount of 10,000 bells. The rest of the week's prices weren't very good, and I also forgot to account for the fact that the last day of the month in Animal Crossing Gamecube is Raffle Day, where you're unable to buy or sell anything. No harm, no foul as far as I'm concerned, as we definitely made the most of this week, though. Week 3's buying price is 105 bells, giving us the ability to buy 650 turnips this time around. Monday and Tuesday's prices are profitable, but nothing too crazy. I thought it'd be worth hanging on to my turnips for a little bit longer, but when Wednesday's price of 81 and Thursday's price of 87 showed up, I began to regret my decision a little. So here's hoping that there's still a good price to be found this week. Let's see. Alright. This is going to be our selling price no matter what. This has got to be a setup. It's going to be heavily skewed in this game. Now tell me something. Have I gotten really lucky? I mean, I think I could probably tell you that I have, but is this like unusually lucky? According to Kyler, guy who is very involved in the Animal Crossing modding scene and knows this game to an extent that few on Earth could equally boast about, that's going to be... This is average? My, you can't carry all that money. Huh. Be at ease. I'm not at ease, dude, because you know how like hard it's gonna be to manage this many turnips with this much money now? This is where a major obstacle is realized in doing this challenge. Pocket management becomes a real headache when the amount of money that you can carry is as limited as it is. We now have 546,970 bells, and that takes up basically every spot in my pockets. So next week when I go to buy turnips, it's a juggling act of getting money, buying turnips, dropping turnips, grabbing more money, buying more turnips, and repeating that process until every single bell that I have earned is spent. At 125 bells per turnips, we were able to purchase 4,370 turnips. With turnip stacks only going as high as 100, and your pocket being 15 spaces, that means this is 3 pockets worth of turnips. Alright, 1,000 bells. 131. It always starts just a little bit more than what you bought it for. It seems like that's true always for Monday.
It's 1,000 bells.
Dude. What the fuck? I can't do this, man. That's just not right. Oh my god. What the fuck? Yeah. The process of selling turnips took almost an hour, as this game doesn't allow you to sell more than what your pockets can hold in bells, meaning that we could only sell 500 turnips at a time before our inventory is filled with bell bags. That's 9 trips of selling, running back to the bank to deposit the money, running back, and selling again. All in all, we made out with 4,270,720 bells. Just 1 month ago, we started with 10,000, and hell, we even lost a little bit that week, meaning that it really only took 3 insane weeks to go from 9,300 bells to almost 4.2 million. And therein lies the reason why I'm cutting this game off. At the rate that we're making money, it would become more effort than it's worth to consistently have to manage all this money and the turnips that we'll buy with it. But by checking prices for the next 6 weeks, we can still get an idea of how much money that you can make over the 10 weeks that I had originally planned. Week's 5 buying price is 85 bells, which means that I can buy 50,240 turnips, or about 33.5 pockets full. Given the fact that you can only buy them at 100, 50, or 10 at a time, that would mean 506 individual purchases from Joan. And now you see why I'm simulating this rather than doing it. And in this simulation, we'll assume that I also sell at the highest price that week. Which, given that I didn't the very first week, it could be argued that that isn't fair. But I ask you, do you want to be a persnickety bastard about it? Or do you want to see me make some bells?
Bells, bells, bells.
Week 5 was looking a bit underwhelming, with the first 3 days' prices being 89, 94, and 101. But then Thursday comes along with 680 bells. 50,240 turnips sold for 680 bells equals 34,163,200 bells, a 341,000 1,532% return on our initial 10,000 bell investment, and we're only halfway done. That allows us to purchase 299,670 turnips at 114 bells next week. That's almost 3,000 purchases from Jones, which I'm not even sure you'd be able to do in the 6 hours that she's in your town. Week 6 is the first time in a while where none of our selling prices are absurdly large, with our best price only being 126 on a Tuesday, which still totals 3,595,220 bells of profit that week, giving us a total of 37,758,420 bells to invest in week 7, which turns out to be another modest week, with our best price being 94 bells after buying for 85, but that's still good for almost another 4 million bells, meaning we go into week 8 with 41,755,740 bells. But this week sees absolutely no selling prices that are more than what we bought for. Our best selling price was on a Monday at 102 bells, and it just kept falling from there. Having bought for 121 bells, this means that we lose 6,557,580 bells this week. Youch. But in the midst of "it's so over," I found there was, within me, an invincible "we're so back." 736 bells per turnip, having bought 382,580 turnips, gives us 281,578,880 bells, or over a quarter of the way to a full bank account, in 9 weeks of playing. I'm satisfied with calling turnips in this game broken. Simulating one more week is merely an exercise in mathematical excess. We're well beyond proving that the stock market in this game is broken, so even though week 10 is another bad week where I never even find a selling price beyond what I bought for, losing me over 62 million bells in the process, it doesn't matter. We proved our point. The stock market in Animal Crossing Gamecube is pretty damn good. Oh yes, man, the boot up start, the menu song. Like I mentioned before, the only notable difference in Animal Crossing Wild World stock market is the fact that there are 2 selling prices throughout the day, one in the AM and one in the PM. Hopefully that's all that's different from the previous game. But as much as it would be nice to make absurd profits like we did last time, I feel as though the developers would have noticed how absurd the stock market was in the previous game and maybe reined it in a little for balancing purposes in the next entry. As before, we start with 10,000 bells, investing as much as we can into buying turnips the first week, and every week after that. Remember not to time travel in-game ruins turnip prices. No, okay. Because that's a myth I remember hearing all the time as a kid. Is that, oh, time traveling will ruin your turnip prices. And I sort of always thought it was true because I time traveled a lot in old Animal Crossing. I never saw, like, good turnip prices. I know going back ruins them. Yeah, that spoils them. But they're saying specifically that it ruins the prices, which I don't think that's true. Or so I thought. But after 3 weeks of prices that just kept falling, and bottoming out to consistently almost half of what I bought them for, I knew something was fishy. Maybe there was merit to this rumor. I remember being young and playing Wild World, perusing the Neo-Seeker forums for all the cheats and hot tips. I would read the occasional post about how time traveling makes it so that your turnip prices never rise, but I was assured by the collective think tank of 2000s forum users that that is just simply not the case.
Can you say pointless post?
I disagree as well. They do sometimes rise if you time travel, so your friend is wrong on that one. So you'll forgive me if 10-year-old me didn't question the authenticity of these very trustworthy posters. Forum posts were like the gospel back in the day, and instead of fact-checking what you read, you just took it at face value. But it seems like these goofballs who reassured the thread maker were wrong, as my turnip prices began to look actually profitable as soon as I stopped using the attic phone to change the time, and I instead used the system clock. This appears to be a bypass that should allow for normal turnip patterns, while also allowing you to time travel still, which is great, because I didn't really want to have to sit here for 10 weeks. This was all but confirmed upon the presence of a selling price that we got that was a little bit more like what we're used to seeing in Animal Crossing Gamecube. The businessman has logged on. So now that we can confirm that time traveling does affect the prices, we'll restart our testing of Wild World, and we immediately get greeted with a large spike pattern in the first week. Alright, I swear this better be good. Okay, alright. I was expecting it to be even higher, because with the 110 sell price, I was like, oh man, that's like crazy. So I was expecting like an equally crazy sell price, and 389 is great, obviously, but I don't know. Seeing how high they could get in Gamecube, and I'm like, man, I bet they don't get as high as like 1,000 anymore. And then we follow that up with another large spike in week 2. Oh my god! 577. I thought that this was going to be worse than last week, because look, the prices when they ticked up were like 30 bells less, and then like 60 bells less. Meaning I was like, oh, it's probably going to be like something in the 200s probably. No! 557. Alright, and then selling those gets us 184,640 bells. I don't have enough room in my pockets. Dude, it's been a long time since I've heard that. For a 149,000 bell profit that week, and now a 1,748.7% return to date. Decreasing patterns in both weeks 3 and 4 bring us back down to earth a little bit, losing over 110,000 bells over those 2 weeks. In a guide written by GameFAQs user Liquify, they found that the decreasing pattern happens at about a 15% rate, and this is over a sampling of 367 weeks. I actually want to make an aside for this video to credit this user appropriately. Before doing this testing myself, I didn't know that there was such a complete and invaluable resource available to me, such as Liquify's FAQ for Animal Crossing Wild World. This is an extensive guide for the game that covers far more than just the stock market. Over 50 chapters of extensive research about almost anything that you could possibly want to know about this game. Every section covering details about that specific aspect, made during a time where the effort wasn't done for the purposes of monetizing it. This is purely for the purposes of sharing information about a game that they love. And they've done this for Wild World, Gamecube, City Folk, New Leaf, even the Japanese exclusive N64 version of Animal Forest. Plus several games in the Pokemon series as well. Even if I was only 13 when this was made, and even if I didn't know it at the time, this set the standard that people like me try to achieve so many years in the future. But instead of text, it's voices and visuals. Instead of ASCII art, it's PNGs. But resources like this are inspiring to me for their unadulterated compiling of information, the likes of which I could only hope to achieve in the work that I do now. No doubt, this was the result of months, maybe years of playing, tons of collaboration between other people who love the game just as much as they did. And the only return for their efforts is being the highest rated guide on a game forum. They did it because they love the game, and they love helping others. So thank you to anyone who contributed so much work towards documenting information about games that are years past their release, so that people like me can do what it is that I do today. Anyway, after those 2 decreasing weeks, it was looking pretty bad once again, as it was Thursday in the AM and my prices hadn't yet turned a corner after falling all week. Spike patterns need at least 5 time frames to occur, 2 prices to begin ticking upwards, the spike, and then 2 prices to tick back down. Small spikes tick up 3 times before spiking, so with only 5 time frames left to check this week, it was either going to have to be another decreasing pattern or a large spike. But if it was going to be the latter, it would have to start ticking up now. Otherwise, it's 3 bad weeks in a row. But perhaps there is still a chance. Last one was 103. I'm gonna guess that this one's in like the mid 100s. Ooh. And you're like, dude, it's time to sell. And I'm like, no. I don't think so. I think that today's PM price is gonna be crazy. Bang, dude. 536. Holy smokers. 534, 570. 533, 354. Oh my god, it's bad. It's bad. It's so bad. 354, 570. So halfway through our testing for Wild World, and we're already at an over 3,400% increase from our starting amount. And that's still over 100 times less than where we were at this point in Gamecube. After the sell price ticks down 4 times in a row, we see a tick upwards on Wednesday morning. Now normally, this upward trend continues until a spike, but something unusual happens in the afternoon prices that day. What do you mean? Uh-oh. Oh, is it a random? Oh no. Really? Oh, interesting. So we're just gonna have to, like, sell when we see a good price. Okay, dude, totally. I'll totally sell at 164. Absolutely. Because it might get better, but with a random pattern, dude, you gotta, like, we're making a good profit with 164. 575,700 for a profit this week of 221,130 bells, now giving us a percentage return from our initial 10,000 of 5,657%. Oh. I could have had, like, what? What would I have gotten? Somebody can do the math. What would I have had? Or maybe don't do this, because I think this would just make me more sad. So as it turns out, these upward ticks before a spike may step down once before spiking, fooling you into potentially thinking that the pattern is random. This was observed in Liquify's examples that they documented as well. From their examples, and my own testing, this only seems to happen for small spike patterns. Next week's pattern is a bit more straightforward though, ticking up, and spiking at 178 bells. Selling that week puts us at over 1 million bells, and it's about at that point where we once again run into the problem of pocket management, as the process of buying turnips becomes quite laborious. Made even worse by the fact that this week's pattern is another large spike, albeit a pretty small one though. With about 2.3 million bells now, and our pockets unable to handle our net worth, I once again chose to simulate the last 2 weeks. Week 9's buying price was an even 100 bells per turnip, meaning that I could buy 23,460 turnips. The best price that we saw that week ended up being 139 bells in a random pattern week. That translates to 3,260,940 bells to invest in the final week, which was another small spike, with a maximum selling price of 188 bells. If we bought turnips that week for 95 bells, that almost doubles what we started that week at, meaning our final bell amount for Animal Crossing Wild World is 6,452,160, a 64,421.6% return on our starting amount of 10,000, which is great, obviously, but pretty modest in comparison to Gamecube. Next up is Animal Crossing City Folk for the Wii. Just glancing at Liquify's guide for this game, it looks like it'll be pretty similar to Wild World, which is true for many regards in City Folk. But even though it's not relevant specifically for turnip trading, this game's frame rate and snappy controls just feels like such a breath of fresh air compared to Wild World. Also different in this game is the fact that we are able to freely time travel via the in-game method, this being done by talking to Rover on the starting screen. Liquify's guide does warn about turnip prices decreasing by doing this, but I think that because I'm playing this on the Wii U and the system clock on the Wii menu doesn't exist, they either removed this feature or the game doesn't know what time it actually is to detect that the system clock and the game clock aren't matched up. Therefore, it trusts me that it's definitely the time that I set it to. But either way, I'm not complaining, because if I had to change the Wii U system clock every time, this would never get done. Alright, and then we can go to System Settings. And we can wait some more. And now after, we'll reach over to the gamepad. Then we go back to the Wii U menu. And then, after we get back to the Wii U menu, we gotta wait some more. And then, and only then, can we go back to the Wii menu. And then, I have to go here, and I have to go TV. And then we have to wait a little bit more. Anywho, we start, as always, with 10,000 bells. We've been downgraded to the more humble Nook way, as opposed to Nookingtons in the previous 2 games. Once again, though, not complaining. Oh, okay. Wow. Monday AM 142. Yeah. I mean, if that's random, that's pretty good. Okay, well, from the looks of it then, getting something in the 140s on a random pattern is absolutely gonna be close to your best. So I'm gonna sell at 142. And that's 12,780. Why was I thinking it would be way more than that? Alright, well, the earliest time I've ever sold in a week. And we got a 2,900 bell profit for a 29.7% return on our investment this week. And we'll start next week with 12,970 bells. Our instinct to sell on the very first price of the week ended up being the right thing to do. While we did get a couple more decent selling prices that week, nothing topped the 142 bells that we saw at the very start. So that gives us 12,970 bells to invest in week 2. Another 109, huh? Okay, well, if I have 12,970 and I'm buying at 109, how many can I buy? I can buy 110. 85. 81. 76. 71. 114. Oh. Didn't we learn, though, that in a small spike, it can have, like, a dip before spiking? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Alright, well, hold up now. But that's not the spike, though? I'm guessing this is going to be something in, like, the very low 200s. Or maybe even high 190s. Yes. Nice. 212. Awesome. We're absolutely selling at 212. And I don't have a whole lot, so it's not going to be like, yeah, it's 23,000. But, I mean, you know, we've over doubled what we started with. I think that's pretty good. So small spikes appear to work the same as before, ticking up 3 times before spiking. That gives us 24,300 bells to start week 3, which is nice, but not quite the rocket start that we saw in the last game. Now this is the first game where I found documentation of turnip patterns being influenced by the previous week's pattern, basically ensuring that there's a balance between getting too many good or bad selling patterns in a row. Last week being a small spike means that there's a high chance of next week's pattern being decreasing. I don't know what high really means, but whoever figured this out seems to have been right. Alright, I'm out. I'm done. We're gonna sell at 52. It's gonna be like half of what we had, but whatever. Still more than what we started at. Oh, that's... Damn, I'm back to square one! I'm almost back to square one, man! By this point, it's too late in the week for a spike to start, meaning that this pattern is undoubtedly decreasing. Despite the meager amount that I ended up selling for, it must have been enough for Tom Nook to trigger a store upgrade. Oh. Well. Right, because I guess selling triggered the amount of bells that we needed for him to upgrade the store, so... So for Friday's prices, we're going to make an estimation based on the last price that we saw and the first price that we saw after the expansion is complete. The last price on Thursday was 52 bells, and the first price on Saturday was 40 bells. So even though we're not 100% sure, we can be fairly confident that Friday's prices were around 48 in the morning and 44 in the afternoon. But I marked them with a red border so that people know it's just an estimation. There is one positive thing to glean out of this slow start though, and that's the fact that a decreasing pattern gives us high odds of a large spike pattern the following week. This logic proved true last week, so surely it will this week as well. 110. Uh-oh, it's random. So we've had one random week already. We know how to handle ourselves. Being that I bought for the lowest amount of bells possible, we're probably going to want to look for something that's like 130 or close. I think that's what we'll go for. Nah. Come on. 66! 62. 117. All right. All right, let's hold up here. Let's hold up. All right, let's talk. We're halfway through the week's prices, and the best that we've seen is 117. I said back when we had 110 on Monday in the AM that I'm looking for something that's in like the 130 range. And then I said that if we get to somewhere halfway through the week and we haven't gotten that, I said I would lower my standards to like 120 something. So here we are at a crossroads, Wednesday in the PM, and our best price is what we're currently seeing, that being 117. All right, I'll give you 2 minutes. Looks like we're selling. And that was like supposed to be our good week because that was our bounce back week from the decreasing pattern last week. So the fact that that was like supposed to be our good week and it's still not even that good, yeah, I don't know. But whatever. All right. Well, you guys better have been right.
The next day.
You all stink. I'd have totally been happy to sell for that too. Like, that is only 5 more bells than what we sold for. So even though we didn't sell at the best time this week, we recuperated some losses from the week before. We have 16,800 bells going into week 5, far behind where we were at this point in Gamecube and Wild World. But it goes to show that, even with bad luck, turnips are still profitable. I knew that this was true for New Horizons, the one game whose stock market that I knew pretty well, but I'm glad to see that it's true for these older games too. Okay, alright, here we go. Alright, I'm ready. The roller coaster gets going up.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes.
Finally. Oh, finally. And all I have is this. That's, hey man, that's pretty good though. And we can turn 70. Now we have money. Now we have money to work with. Maybe it's because I was so spoiled from the previous game's prices, but I feel like I was due a crazy price like this. So halfway through City Folks' experiment, we're at 77,920 bells. In the just 5 weeks that we played to this point, we've already seen every possible pattern, so the system of ensuring more diverse selling prices seems to be doing its job. Unfortunately for us though, it doesn't exactly lead to better profits, as we're far behind where we were at this point in the previous 2 games. The good news is that we don't see another decreasing pattern in the remaining 5 weeks. We get a small spike of 163 in week 6, and a 131 sell price in a random pattern on week 7. We get another small spike in week 8, and the third tick upwards before the spike was 156 bells. Now normally, the spike is supposed to be at least slightly better than the previous price, but it actually ended up being exactly the same. Quite rude. Week 9 was a large spike, albeit a very piddly one at only 211 bells. I mean, we've seen small spikes that were bigger than that. And finally, week 10 was another small spike, with the final selling price being 167 bells. So the good news is that this is the first game where I didn't get so bogged down with managing turnips in my very limited pocket space. The bad news is that's because this ended up being the worst game by a large measure. We didn't even crack 1,000,000 bells, ending with only 929,290 bells. But again, it's a testament to how good the stock market is for making money that a 9,192.9% return from our starting amount could be seen as disappointing, especially when we only had 1 week where we didn't make money. It seems like our lows weren't as low, but our highs weren't as high either. The average price that we sold for was 183.5 bells, much less than Gamecube's 459.5 bells, and Wild World's 252 bells. But that's okay. Tell anyone on Twitter that you made almost 10,000% return in 10 weeks, and your inbox will be flooded with moochers. So now we're on to Animal Crossing New Leaf for the 3DS. This is the last game that Liquify wrote a guide for, which is perfect as this is the last game where I'm unfamiliar with the selling patterns. Though after looking at it, it seems, once again, largely the same. Though I did worry at first that the time-traveling punishment mechanic returned, as our first week's prices were not looking too great. 82. Alright, that's pretty standard. 79. 76. 72. 64. All right. It's got 2 more time periods to turn this attitude around here. 60 bells. Golly. All right, it has to turn around here. Oh, okay. All right, bad week. 5,600 plus 800, so 6,400 after 1 week. That is a loss of 3,600 and 36% of our initial investment. Like City Folk, New Leaf also determines the next week's sell patterns largely in part to your previous weeks, meaning that we have a high chance of a large spike next week, luckily. Oh! Alright, so I think that the patterns work similarly to how they work in City Folk, where you'll start to see it tick up, like this. If it's a large spike, it will tick up 1 more time after this, and then spike. Or if it's a small spike, it'll tick up 2 more times, and then spike.
Ooh.
Alright, what did I say? 494? Here we go. Come on. Ooh, okay. Alright, I'll take it. Now, if I was really wanting to maximize, I probably wouldn't play the next week, because it's unlikely to get 2 large spikes back to back, but we didn't do that for any other game, so let's not start doing it for this one. 24,280, giving us now a 17,000 bell profit for this week and a 142.8% return from our initial 10,000 bell investment. Interestingly, every pattern following the large spike is labeled as low chances, except for the random price pattern, making it fairly likely to expect some goofy prices for week 3. 89, 84, 80 bells, 76, come on, man. Oh, god damn it, dude. Alright, it has to turn around. Well, no, it's still got time. It still has time. But it better start getting its shit together here soon. 67, man. Come on! Turn around! 63? Alright, it's got 1 more chance. Otherwise, it's another decreasing pattern. The 2nd time in 3 weeks. Alright, come on. Damn it! Ah! Rat bastard. I can't believe you. 2 decreasings in the first 3 weeks. Yes, interjected by a large spike, but still. Oh, you're such a little asshole and I hate you. Well, that wasn't goofy at all. What do you got for like a doll? She fell in a hole. Ooh, here we go. Here we go. 136. Okay. All right. So if there's a big spike, it would happen PM of today. If it's a small spike, then it's going to take 1 more small step up before it spikes. 292. All right. That's the spike for sure. But as far as big spikes go, and I don't want to sound like an ungrateful runt, but as far as the big spikes go, that is on the lower end. So it appears to be a 50-50 chance between seeing the somber lows of a decreasing pattern and the euphoric highs of a large spike pattern. And I definitely think that 4 weeks is enough of a sample size for me to say that for sure. The large spikes seem to more than offset the losses of a decreasing week though, so if this trend wanted to continue the entire 10 weeks, I wouldn't say no. Ooh. Silly random goofy ass week detected. Okay. It's pretty much a surefire thing that your pattern will be random if your first price is anything over 100. That being said, one of Liquify's examples of a small spike pattern features a Monday morning price of 126, meaning that small spike patterns can start ticking upwards from the very first price of the week. And if that's what's going on, then Tuesday afternoon's prices should be our spike. I'm thinking this is going to be a small spike, and it's going to be 184. This is weird. 4 prices, and they've all stayed, like, the same. For it being random, this is staying, like, relatively, like, the same. I think I'll sell. 127. I mean, that's the best price I've seen so far. Now give us 55,880. Profit this week of 8,800. So not great, but it's okay. It's better. We finally bucked the trend of getting decreasing patterns every odd-numbered week, so I'll take it. Oh! Well, ouch. Alright, whatever. I thought, whatever. Who cares? That's the random patterns for you, though. So despite our miscalculation, we still made 8,800 bells of profit this week, and we're more well-versed in spotting random patterns in the future, which is great because the very next week, we get another one. Come on, man. We passed up prices of 101, 120, and 107, all of which would have been profitable, but our patience paid off as we saw 129 bells on Wednesday afternoon. Week 7 features the minimum buying price of 90, and that usually means our selling prices will be on the lower end of whatever pattern that we get. But our prices begin to tick up on Tuesday afternoon, up again on Wednesday morning, meaning that Wednesday afternoon will tell us whether this is a small or a large spike. $519 is a huge selling price after buying for the minimum amount of bells. We turned 76,530 bells coming into the week into 441,180 bells to invest in Week 8. Week 8, once again, quickly reveals itself to be another random pattern, indicated by the 120 sell price on Monday morning. And then on Tuesday morning, I see a 129 selling price, but given that it's still early in the week, I decide to push my luck for something better. But as the week goes on, and the prices get worse, I decide to lower my standards a little bit. It gets all the way to Thursday afternoon, and now I'm staring down the barrel of selling at a terrible loss. But luckily, we got bailed out the next morning. Now, 123 is obviously not the best price that I saw this week, but, you know, I gambled and I lost out. And isn't that what the stock market was made for? You notice how I'm not using a turnip price prediction tool for this video, for a couple of reasons. One is that I can't find any for the older games because I don't think anybody ever actually cared to make one, and two is that because a lot of the fun in buying and selling turnips is the risks that you take in doing so. Sure, I could use a tool to figure out what my best prices will be, but I've had more fun doing it this way. Not to mention, it's pretty easy to make a profit most weeks unless you're a real ignoramus. Week 9 features a small spike pattern that peaks at 180 bells, and that puts us just shy of 1 million bells, a mark that we did not reach the previous game. So just a small profit on week 10 should put us into the 7 digits. Jeepers! With the very healthy pile of turnips that we have, that translates to a final amount of 3,891,670 bells. A 38,816.7% return from our initial investment of 10,000. Now that is what you like to see. And now the only game where I was fairly knowledgeable about the stock market coming into this video, Animal Crossing New Horizons. A few videos of mine have featured me buying and selling turnips in this game, specifically ones where I need to make a lot of money as quickly as possible. We found that you can become a millionaire in only a few hours by using turnips. We used it to pay off our home loans in full in the video where I try to accomplish as much as possible in 24 hours of the game. So I already have a good idea of how much money I'm going to make, but what I want to know is whether it's better or worse than previous games. The island that I'm using is the same island that I used in the video where I completed my entire Critterpedia in 5 days. In that video, I had to buy a couple of turnips and allow them to rot to catch an ant. Now I bring this up because the first time that you buy turnips in Animal Crossing New Horizons, the game guarantees you a small spike pattern, but being that I have bought them before, we will not have such an advantage. Which is fine, I think, because as far as I'm aware, no other game in the series had such an advantage. Despite that, though, we see our Thursday afternoon prices begin to tick up after falling all throughout the week, indicating a spike of some sort. I love to see that. Alright, it turned around at the last possible second, at the stroke of midnight. It turned around. Alright, that means that it's going to be a very late spike this week. It's a matter of whether it's a small spike or a large spike. 121, okay. I wonder if, see, the only thing I don't remember, despite all the times that I've used Turnip Profit, is I don't remember how many times it ticks up before it spikes. In older games, it steps up 3 times before a small spike, 2 times before a large spike. I think in this game, it ticks up twice, no matter which spike it is. I think it only ticks up once. I hope so badly that you're wrong. Okay, you're wrong. That's fine. But now I'm not sure, because... Man, I really don't remember in New Horizons. I think that we should probably sell here, right? Like, this is probably a small spike. 14,100 plus my initial amount is 14,900, giving us a profit of 4,900 and a 49% return on our 10,000 investment. Okay, so good week 1 then. Fuck. So there is a 3 price run up in this game. Oh. Hot dog. Huh. Damn. Okay. Lesson learned. Better to learn that lesson now than later on, but still a little bit bitter. But yeah, we'll keep that in mind for the future. So week 1 does turn out to be a small spike pattern anyway, and even if I foolishly sold too early, we still made almost 5,000 bells in profit. Week 2 of New Horizons turns out to be the most chaotic week that I've seen in any game to this point. Yeah, I'm talking to Tommy today. Hey, Tommy. Oh, it's 127. That's random. You could almost say it's a random pattern. Yuck. Okay, well, that certainly makes this interesting. 141. All right, that's our selling price from last week. Jeepers creepers. It can't, like, spike to start the week, right? It can't do that. Can it do that? Somebody who's watching this is plugging all these into Turnip Profit and just, like, rubbing their hands together at my ignorance. Like, I know what pattern it is, but he doesn't. It sounds like fluctuating, right? And it just happened to go up twice in a row, making me think that it could go up more. I'm gonna keep going. Maybe stupid of me. 141 is a pretty good price, but, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's what I sold last week on, and I bought for way less last week, meaning that my profits this week wouldn't be as good. 129. Yeah, see, it fell. Still not bad, 129. But, yeah, if we bought for 107, I mean, what? That's 22 bells per turnip, and we bought, what? 130 turnips? 130 times 22? Just doing the math in my head here, like, what would that be? 2,860 bell profit. And, like, the first week, we made a 4,900 bell profit. We should be making bigger profits than that. 108. That would be a 1 bell per turnip profit. All right, halfway through the week, and I have not sold yet. We still got time. We still got time. 65, man. Come on. I thought I had a fair bit of chipperness in my voice today. All right, I think 137 is a good time to get out. That's only 4 less than the best price I saw this week. So, again, it's another week where we didn't maximize. 18,800. 2 modest weeks. Whatever. Dude, whatever. I can't get mad that I got a 145 at the very end of the week, all right? Because if I got this all the way to Saturday PM without selling, I'd be shitting my pants, all right? I can't get mad that I got 145 right at the end. Obviously, I'd have been happy to see that if I had been holding on, but I'd have been shitting myself up to that point if I was still holding on to these things. Because I could have gotten 2. And I'd been like, well, I just lost 99% of my net worth. So, whatever. Can't get too mad at that one. Going into week 3, this is the least amount of bells that we've had to this point so far, but all it takes is 1 good week to turn it around. Oh, yeah, that's good. 84. That's a tick up. Albeit, like, not a very high one, but it's something. 183. Okay. I think that it's cruising for a bruising. What's up? Alright, let's see, like, 999,999. Please. Okay! What's that get us? 101,400 for a total amount of 101,600 bells. That gives us a profit this week of 82,800 bells, and now a 916% return from our initial 10,000 bell investment. So we have cracked 6 figures, but New Horizons is another game where the previous week's pattern influences your next week's pattern. Luckily, though, after seeing 90 and 108 on the following Monday, we knew that it was going to be another random week. Random patterns are not as random as they seem, with prices usually staying between 50 to 130 or so, in my experience. But every time that I've seen one, there's at least one price that you see throughout the week that will earn you a profit. However, after turning down a 121 selling price, and the day now being Thursday, I was wondering if I had gotten maybe a bit too greedy and missed my chance. It's kind of hard to say no to that at this point, you know? It's kind of hard to say no. I said no to 121, but that was 2 days ago. So now I'm thinking that I should probably stop pushing my luck. 129,600. So that gives us a profit this week of 28,080 bells. Another modest gain. Another week that I didn't sell for the maximum, but I mean, dude, I've had 2 random patterns now. Like, that's to be expected. Many times, yeah. Always at the last... Alright, dude. Next time I get a random pattern, I'm hanging on until the very last time of the week. Because every time I get a random pattern, at Saturday PM, it always jumps up to something that is more than what I sold for earlier in the week. Every fucking time I get a random pattern, Saturday PM, the last time frame of the week, always comes in with a price that makes me mad. Because I'm like, damn, I should have held on. So next time I get a random pattern, I am not selling unless I get some egregiously good price at some point during the week. I'm selling. I'm not selling until I get Saturday PM. Going into week 5, we're at 129,680 bells. That's the most that we've had to this point in any game since Animal Crossing for the Gamecube. 64. Okay, this needs to turn around now. It's now or never. Damn it! Alright, well, we got our first decreasing. It was to be expected. 78 grand. Ugh. For 78,980. A loss this week of 50,000 bells. Woof. Alright, whatever. PMA, guys, PMA. Positive mental attitude. Halfway through New Horizons now, and even though we took a step back last week, we're still doing pretty well. I wasn't using Turnip Profit for this challenge, but for the sake of demonstration, I'll use it to show you the odds of the different patterns after a decreasing week. The most likely pattern that we'll see is a large spike at 45%. Then a small spike and a random pattern are tied at a 25% chance each, and the chances of another decreasing pattern are just 5%, meaning that it's very likely that we'll recuperate a lot of our losses from last week. And also, with a buying price of 108, our maximum potential price this week is 648, which would be nice. 121. Alright, there it goes. There she goes. Alright, I think we're getting a big spike. 170 is quite the mighty price.
Oh, mamma mia!
638. That's a crazy one, considering I think 660 is the highest it goes. I told you. What'd I tell you? That decreasing pattern, that's just fuel for a large spike the next week. 465,880 bells for a profit of 386,900 bells. Okay, pretty good. And now it's going to become a bit of a nightmare to manage turnips because We're gonna have to probably buy like multiple inventories worth and drop them and then pick them back up when I want to sell. And then, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a bit of a nightmare, but whatever. We're almost at 1 million bells now, and despite the elevated chances of a decreasing pattern the next week, we get another small spike of 158 bells, netting us another couple 100,000 bells, before seeing another large spike on week 8. 327 is on the lower end of large spike prices, but maybe I'm just a bit spoiled from before. It makes us a multi-millionaire, and a man whose pockets are going to be a bit full. It's very possible that even with the expanded carrying capacity of New Horizons, I may still run out of room for the amount of bells that I have in the end. Because at this point, the turnips are piling up pretty extensively, and without a means of storing them, it takes quite a while to buy and sell. I still think it's very silly how this game's predecessor, New Leaf, lets you put turnips in your storage. Convenient for selling in your town, and in someone else's town, as you could just grab the turnips from the locker in the train station. But no! You will litter your turnips all over the island, and you will like it. Want to sell multiple inventories on another island? Looks like it's multiple flights for you, pal. Stupid ass game. Week 9 is another random pattern, which once again burns me by giving me another good price on Saturday afternoon. That's 3 times now that I've gotten a random pattern, and 3 times that I've sold for an amount that was less than the maximum price that I saw that week. And all 3 times, I would have been better off hanging on to them until the very end of the week. So for the final week, I saw that we had another random pattern, and I was committed to finally getting it right. I shunned my temptations, I remained patient, and though there were doubts and moments of dread, agony, and sorrow, I got to Saturday morning and was finally rewarded for my patience. And after the daunting task of selling off my entire farm, we earned 4,233,610 bells, too many to hold in my pockets at once. So that's 50 weeks played across 5 Animal Crossing games, and we are now ready to dig into all of our findings. So now the part that you all came for, as indicated by this being the most replayed part of the video timeline. Here is the total bells that we ended up with after 10 weeks of playing across all 5 games. And it wasn't even close, with Animal Crossing Gamecube far and away the most broken, with 219,261,900 bells. And if you remember, at one point we actually had way more than that, but got unlucky with a decreasing pattern on the last week. Second place was Animal Crossing Wild World, ending with 6,452,160 bells. Then New Horizons with 4,233,610 bells, followed closely by New Leaf with 3,891,670 bells, and City Folk with a comparatively paltry 929,290 bells. Do you want to see these numbers graphed out? No you don't, because it sucks! Gamecube just renders the graph unreadable, with every other game just being reduced down to an unreadable mess because of how much the game messed up that scale. A more interesting graph would be getting rid of Gamecube altogether, and showing how much of a fight it was among all the other games in the series, barring City Folk, who I think was just unlucky with a slow start and relatively low average selling prices, even on its large spikes. Speaking of average selling prices, here they are. Naturally, these correlate with how they finished in the overall standings, but I think what's more interesting is the highest selling price, of which Gamecube once again trounces everyone else in, but you can see that, despite finishing 3rd overall, New Horizons had the 2nd highest selling price among all the games. Of course, that would only be the 6th highest selling price overall, with the top 5 all being from Animal Crossing Gamecube. Finally, I tracked my selling prices by day to see which days were the best for selling throughout the games. And there's a lot of variance in which day is best, with Tuesdays averaging the highest sell prices in Animal Crossing Gamecube, Thursday afternoons in Wild World, Wednesday afternoons in City Folk and New Leaf, and Wednesday mornings in New Horizons. This is something that would definitely benefit from a larger sample size than 10 weeks, as would this whole experiment, but as you saw, it gets to a point pretty quickly where it becomes just not fun to have to manage all the buying and selling. But regardless, I still had fun putting this together, and I hope that you had fun watching. I like finding any reason to go back and play the older games in this series, so if you have any ideas for videos like that, then let me know. Thank you for watching.